7:01. And we are returning to our workshopping of the comprehensive plan. We left, we were in chapter 3, future land use, and we still have to hear comments from Frank and from Anne. I'm just wondering if it would be helpful for me to quickly recap what I believe we came up with at the last session. I can read my little notes if that's helpful or not.
I just might take it if it's only going to be a couple of minutes, then I would say take the time to do it. But if it's going to be like 10 or 15, then we probably should just jump into things.
It won't be 10 or 15.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm on page 67. I think this may not be so helpful, because what I really should do is write up all my notes in one coherent piece of paper. I know that Margaret had suggested that, I have everyone's suggestions. I have that Nathan, you're going to do some work on why we're dealing with future commercial and retail uses, and that you are also going to work on, most importantly, what would be permitted and not permitted, by right businesses in the home, and what would be excluded in the new RC zone.
Yeah, and I just so everyone knows, Jeff Spears and I had a 30-minute conversation about that particular topic. And,
only 30 minutes?
Well, well, essentially what he was saying is that I can go find the information, but he took 30 minutes to tell me that. But there is a source. So in the zoning material, a lot of that is referenced. So I can use that as a foundation for anything that I'm doing in that.
I thought I'd passed on to you something that Tom Angel sent me, which was language that had been written a long time ago, extensive language about zoning that never got incorporated. That did I send that to you?
You did.
Okay. That was actually one of the most significant aspects that we talked about, was just defining that.
Wendy, you did send it to all of us, and I agree. It's a terrific platform to launch into today's discussions. There are lots of changes that have occurred in 15 years, but I agree, it's a great beginning of the conversation.
Well, I think that, I think we should get that list. I don't think we should attempt to be writing the zoning law, but I think in this base document that the zoning commission will work off of, we should make it clear just what kind of businesses would be acceptable or not acceptable. Anyway, I think that's what Nathan's working on now. So why don't we, Frank, we left off with you, and then Anne, we will turn to you. And we're on, as I said, the future land use begins on page 67. Frank, I don't know where you want to turn our attention to.
First of all, let me say that I did send some recommended language out, excuse me, a few weeks ago. I'm sorry, I'm reclining to keep my leg up, and it's causing congestion. And the themes of that have been to promote not just our agricultural heritage, but also our residential neighborhood culture. So And my concern was not only about home-based businesses, but also about part-time rentals and Airbnbs and the like. Wendy, I could run through that within 1 minute if you'd like, or I could lead people through my comments page by page. That would take maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I could further summarize that if you'd like.
Whatever you feel the most comfortable with, Frank. I mean, I do remember printing out the document. I don't believe I have that copy with me with my voluminous amount of paper.
Okay, I think for Gary's sake, Gary, you still have a copy of what I wrote? I could summarize it now.
Yes, I have a copy somewhere. I don't have it right in front of me, but yeah.
Okay, well, give me a minute and then I have another couple of thoughts on this chapter, which I think for me is one of the most critical components of the entire and extraordinary work that we have. So I'll go quickly. My concerns and the language I recommended begin at the very beginning of the plan. So the objective 1.1 on page 13, I've suggested that the safeguarding of our rural and residential and architecture characters is included in that by preserving neighborhoods. So I start there with.
Wait, you're going back to page 13?
I am because all of what I'm presenting in chapter 3 is reflected in the primary objectives of the plan.
When we went through those first chapters, and I remember we spent a very long time on the introduction and stuff, did you speak to those points then?
I didn't then because I had not worked up through to chapter 3. It was only then that it became evident that 2 objectives I would like to see modified just a little by language including neighborhood protection.
I don't even know as I have those pages with me. I think I started.
So you just want to modify objective 1.1.
I don't have
That's
that,
right.
so.
Also, Gary, objective 4.4,
Mhm,
page 14.
mhm.
I'm lost.
Nice.
Go ahead, Frank.
Sorry, I don't have those pages. I just have what I thought we were working on tonight. So what are those? I also can't take notes.
Well, on objective 4.4, I was thinking to strike the word encourage and add the word permit small scale and home-based businesses and adding language that preserve neighborhood character. And then jumping into chapter 3 itself.
Wait, can I just,
Well,
because
Frank,
I don't have those papers with me, so I remember, I have no problem with encouraging neighborhood character, but I don't think, I mean, from my point of view, we actually want to encourage, not just permit. It's like we're trying to facilitate and encourage people to have home businesses and to open businesses. So I actually think the word encourage is important.
So Frank,
Yeah,
that's where we were headed when we wrote this. We're trying to find that we were encouraged. The committee was encouraged to find ways to increase business activity in the town, and so we really did mean to encourage smaller scale and home-based businesses. But we could add to that, that are appropriate with the neighborhoods in which they're incorporated, something like that.
Yeah, my language was preserve neighborhood character, but thank you, Gary. What zone would these businesses be permitted? And thank you for sending all of us the zoning map.
Well, that's a zoning committee deliberation as to which home-based businesses would be in which zones. So we didn't get into that in the plan, and I actually would recommend that we don't. It gets too specific too fast, but it's really up to you.
Oh, okay, I just found it. Yeah, that was intentionally left to the zoning commission. And the reason I know that is, I sat in on all those meetings, and there was definitely a desire to not get overly specific, for this to be broad guidance that the zoning commission then digs into. And then we still have a chance to, when the zoning commission comes up with zoning law, we still have a chance to pipe in, as does the public.
So Frank, so I sent you the use table as it currently stands for the town.
It was great,
right?
by the way.
So I could see adding a section to that on home-based businesses that tells you which ones are allowed in which zone and whether they're allowed by special permit, by right, or not allowed at all. But
Actually,
that would be the zoning committee to do that, I believe.
Yeah.
well, I think where the businesses are encouraged is rather important. And the zoning board might want to see a little guidance from the town board on where it's accepted. But
We're talking about homes, Frank. If it's a home-based business, it would be wherever homes are.
Well, I think we have not established yet the character of those businesses and the degree to which they might disrupt the neighborhood environment. So I don't think it's everywhere a home is, but it is awaiting the kind of businesses that we define.
That's what Nathan is working on, like the list of what would be permitted and as right, or the businesses that would not be allowed.
So I'm just so that we're clear, my working on it is actually reviewing what is already in the zoning laws and seeing if there are discrepancies that we need to reconsider.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily need to end up in the comprehensive plan, because the current zoning does have pretty clear outlines of what is and isn't appropriate. For instance, we'll use, that we talked about the automotive, repair. That is very clearly identified as can't be a home business.
Right.
So there is things in there already defined. So, there could be language to that objective 4.4 that, but it's, if it said encourage and permit, it's going to be within the regulations that are under the zoning and the planning board. So I don't know if we need to give the stipulation on how it preserves the neighborhood or not, because this is just saying this is the strategic direction for that. How that actually manifests, that will come from any zoning reviews or any planning reviews.
Yeah, but I think though, Nathan, that as this goes to the zoning board, they would need to know, at least I think they would like to know, my interest in preserving neighborhood culture. And since this is a broad statement, I don't think it's balanced enough in the document without language that clearly says, we want to enhance our neighborhood culture, our neighborhood environments, as much as we want home businesses. So that's where I'm coming from on it.
Isn't it more about protecting the integrity of the neighborhoods by not having intrusive kinds of businesses, which are stated in the zoning code already? I'm trying to find what page 4, whatever page you're talking about. So
page 13 and 14 have the goal and objectives.
okay.
Frank, I don't disagree with you, but I think that, in my opinion, goal 1, 2, 3, and 4 cumulatively are about that improvement to the neighborhood. It's not just the businesses, it's everything that's in here. The pedestrian walkways, the right to farm, all of those things are an embracement of trying to, maintain and, create any
Yeah.
inconsistencies with the quality of the neighborhood. So it's weird to me that we would just put it in that one, when I think all of these things should be an effort towards that.
Yes, I agree with all of the objectives, Nathan, but, and I can't read them quickly enough right at the moment, but I don't think, not one of them mentions anything like protecting neighborhoods or residential areas
I
that
would
already
say
exist.
I'm definitely comfortable with adding to 4.4, encouraging businesses while preserving existing local character or neighborhood character. But I think the reason, Frank, that there's not neighborhoods in this document is that we don't have a lot of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Like they just don't really exist. And it's like you live in one of the few areas that actually has neighborhoods. A lot of us don't. Like we live on a road that has like 3 other houses that are very, like, I wouldn't say Nathan really necessarily lives in a, I guess Huns Lake is a neighborhood, but it's not necessarily the character. But I understand what you mean. And I think that is a great addition to have. Like we want to encourage businesses while protecting our existing neighborhoods, however we want to phrase that. I mean, I'm definitely comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable coming up with a list of things, of businesses that we give the okay to, because I think that's a slippery slope. I'm comfortable with like a small list of things that we're definitely excluding, like an automotive or scrap metal or recycling. I think that's probably the best way to protect neighborhoods, because we can't also like predict all the home businesses that people are going to have in the next, coming decades.
Well, last time we talked about the businesses in terms of the effect it has on neighbors. Like something like an automotive repair shop where people are outside and banging and, having people coming and going is very different than someone having, doing tailoring inside their home.
Yeah. And right. And if we're going to be specific, it would be easier to list the most obvious, such as automotive shops or, I don't even know
Heavy
what else.
machinery, like even vaguer, just businesses that involve heavy machinery or, something, however we want to phrase it.
I mean, right now, I don't even think we're allowed to have junkyards. We have one, but I don't even think by code we're allowed. It's true, the existing code already covers a lot of what is theoretically allowable or not allowable, but there hasn't been great code enforcement, in my opinion. But be that as it may, I think we should think about the word neighborhoods only because we don't actually have very many, but we certainly, whatever language we come up with to add to 4.4 while protecting what did you say, the character of our neighborhoods, Frank?
Well, we use the word character, and Margaret had a language that was similar. I'm happy to send this back out rather than belabor the point, but I would argue that we have many neighborhoods, and that if on a block anywhere, there's a house to your right and a house to your left and one across the street, those are your neighbors, and it is therefore a neighborhood. And if there's a business that disrupts that neighborhood, we would really want to give guidance and priority to protecting what happens there. So I feel pretty strongly on this issue because the home business concept is mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in the document. I get the point. I don't disagree with it. But in all of those, I don't see a counterbalancing strong statement for protecting the residences. And so I'll leave it at that and send along the language that I had recommended. I'm not quite sure how we get to a final decision on language, but I think I made my point on that. And I wanted to mention two other things in this chapter, and then I'm done, probably for a few hours.
Frank, the way the comprehensive board, the comprehensive review plan committee, got it.
Not quite, not quite.
I'm never going to, ultimately dealt with things was by taking a vote. I mean, that's how they ended up making decisions. So I suspect that's what we'll end up doing too.
Okay, great. I just had two other items in chapter 3, and
What page are you on now, Frank?
hang on. Here we go. This is on page 67.
Okay.
And I want to turn to that one too. 66. Everything is in my lap, so I apologize. On page 67 on the left side, the third bullet. Is this right? Oh, excuse me. It's the first bullet. I just wanted to return to that and give my support to the last conversation we had, that the return of the phrase higher density, I think, is very important there. And the reason I say so is that if we're going to promote affordable housing for seniors and others, whoever they may be, the higher density is probably the way to do it. So that's my thinking on that.
Yeah, we decided to add that back.
Great, great. I wasn't sure. Then on page 69, the fourth bullet, which extends the northern boundary of the rural center to Millis Lane. After our many discussions so far, I'm coming to think that that's not a good idea. And the reason I say that is because we already have an RC zone that just from the bank to Bowen Barn is 1.2 miles long. And the west side has developed nicely, more opportunities to develop, but it's the east side that lags behind. And in order to meet some of our other objectives, which are a flourishing hub hamlet, that's, I think, where our energy needs to focus. Later in the plan, it mentions some of the things we can do to help promote that. I don't know that extending the RC in yet another direction, continuing north on 82, since it does continue up towards Bengal already, I envision down the road a 2 mile, which is 2 miles from Uncle Sonny's down to the Bowen Barn. It just, to me, I conjure up Route 44 in Pleasant Valley, or Route 44 in the town of Stanford. I really wonder if we wouldn't want to retain the more rural residential culture, circumstances, the situations that are there, and really concentrate on the east side of 82 between the bank and the gas station. So that's my last item for tonight on chapter 3.
Frank, Gary, do you want to give some history about how we ended up here?
Yeah, this was certainly a controversial topic within the committee, and we debated it several times. And we actually did not come to a consensus about this. We voted on this one, and it was a split vote. But so I'll speak for the committee as a whole here rather than myself. So what we're balancing is the fact that we do want to encourage, most people want to encourage more uh, commercial activity in the town. We would normally want that commercial activity to be in the RC zone in the town center. The argument is that that's nearly impossible, primarily given the health department rules. There aren't very many lots that are large enough to have a septic and well, on site that would allow a commercial establishment to take place. So it basically we've choked off by not having a central water and sewer. We've choked off the ability to have businesses. That's the argument that's made. I mean, there are some lots in the current RC zone that are large enough. They aren't currently being used for commercial activity, but they could be in the future. But there's no guarantee of that. So the way let me just finish up for a second here. The way we decided to deal with that is, number one, to encourage home-based businesses, and number two, to expand the area available for other businesses on the east side of Route 82, north of where it is now. And that's a minor increase. There are a few lots there that are somewhat larger. And the objection to that was that it really is sprawl. But in this case, it seemed like our best alternative. That's where we ended up.
Well, I guess I joined the debate, so I'm glad I'm not alone. It's almost a mile. The other thought that I've been having is that I don't think we should box ourselves in today in a long-range plan that could the previous one lasted 40 years. This one could last 10 or even 20. But in that period of time, I don't think we want to box ourselves in because of current technology and current science and current thinking. My sense is that we should keep it in that zone and do everything we can as a town to invest and develop that area. Later in the plan, there are some marvelous recommendations. I think it's in chapter 4 or 5 on how the town can be more active in developing commercial possibilities. And I think that in my opinion, before we expand the zone and diminish the hub of activity, we should do everything we can to develop that hub and put more resources of the town and thinking and planning into that project, that part of the projects.
So by that reasoning, Frank, then development of new commercial activity in the center of town would await some new sewage technology. Is that what you're getting at?
That's what it
That's
would
right,
happen.
and water.
So that could be quite a wait, right?
No,
Well,
yeah. I mean, that was the biggest objection to the last iteration of the plan was central water and sewer, and the area now in the RC doesn't really have a lot of room for development because there isn't septic. There isn't central sewer. I remember there was the biggest battle I remember or discussion points was that there were some people like Jeff who wanted the RC to extend on both the east and the west side of 82. And that was where I remember there being the biggest.
Some didn't want to extend it at all.
Yeah.
Some didn't want to extend it at all. There were like 3 votes for that.
There were 3?
Yeah, I was one of them.
I don't remember that. But I personally think that's the only, Sonny's is already there as a commercial property. And to me, it's the logical extension of where we could actually support businesses. We also have the antique center, which is now empty, waiting for somebody to rent it. Or
if I'm not mistaken, though, that those, this was before I was a member of the board, there were discussions about that there is a period of time where they lose that status. And I wonder
Unless,
if,
well, unless Sonny sells a cup of coffee, he'll lose his restaurant
right, but
standing.
I'm not talking about the restaurant, I'm talking about the antique center. That's been vacant and unused for, I want to say 2 to 3 years. I don't know, they're not going to get grandfathered into being able to conduct business there.
Right now, it's in front of the planning and zoning to try to become an exhibition and music space.
But
That's
not a
it.
business, isn't it going to be like a nonprofit?
Yeah, that's what, but that's what that building is being looked at for right now.
And that
Um,
is like a good space for a business. And I think the point is that what, you know, what happens next to that space?
There are, I think we counted 6 businesses in that strip we're talking about. There's a plumbing shop,
actually-
there's a gun shop, you know.
Right. So, yeah, in fact, I'm probably the only one, but I'm still in favor of hopping the road and letting John Hughes' 18 acres be part of the extended district, so he doesn't lose his commercial status. He's grandfathered in right now because he's actively running the business. But if he wanted to sell that property, he should be able to sell it as a commercial property, in my opinion. And although Tom said at the last meeting that they didn't like to do that, there have been cases in the past where that was done. So, but I think if we cut off that addition, we're really going to be crippling the town as far as commercial growth, because there just isn't literally the space or facility for sewer or septic in the part that's already developed on 82. So, Anne, did you want your turn
Well, the
now?
good thing about going last is that all my points have been hit. So we really discussed them all at length last time. So I'm good to go now.
Okay. Oh, did we ever find out when we were talking about the mining? I know the JSK permit, Darling got sold for a subdivision development. So I thought that there's one tiny mine that exists next to, that still is permitted but isn't active. Do you know that, Gary?
Well, so there's apparently that property adjacent to JSK is also a mine. I don't know whether it's a different operation in terms of who owns it and who's going to run it. I guess
Somebody owns it.
Okay, I don't know about that.
Okay.
Mark was pushing to have both of those be in the, mining overlay zone, right?
Right now, he's not pushing for the Darling one because it's gone. I mean, it's going to become a subdivision. So I guess we can find out. We'll have time to find out if that other piece of property was sold as well, or if it's still permitted as a mine. Then we should probably include it in the overlay.
Wendy, do you want to try to make a decision on the expansion of the RC zone here? Or are you going to let that ride for a while and come back to it?
Hey,
Let's let it ride. I'm not ready to vote.
okay.
I agree.
Yeah, there's one of the things that, Wendy, I think that you're accurate. One of the things that I'm looking at when I look at the RC zone is trying to understand what frontage is currently commercial versus residential, because I think that would help us have a better assessment of what we could or couldn't do with that. Because if we're looking at the current RC and anything that's along the road and it's 50% residential, that's going to be really prohibitive of trying to encourage businesses, because there's literally no place for them to go. unless the
So-
town board is going to give up the town hall frontage.
No,
Exactly.
Is that map still in there?
Though, I think that the town's participation with developers, it's easily done, and well, not easily, but it's done often to combine parcels, 2 or 3 smaller parcels that are older residences upon their sale, to combine those lots to create the frontage that you would like for some greater economic opportunity.
you mean
So,
the town would be purchasing the property?
well, I wouldn't go that far right at the moment, but if you read ahead in chapter, I think it's 4, I don't think it's 5, there are recommendations by the Comprehensive Planning Board to establish a fund, a town fund, to initiate such projects. And I've not delved into that, but I think the concept is a brilliant one, in that there could be opportunities for the board to participate. When we get to that part, I'll bring up some of the thoughts I've written down. But the combining of smaller, older homes on smaller properties is very much a tactic that can go forward in the future if the town is open to it.
You mean lose them as housing stock and turn them into commercial stock?
Combine the lots upon their sale by the current owners, they're acquired, eliminated, and then some larger businesses invited in.
So I understand what you're saying, but what I'm suggesting is, before we even explore those options, we need to have some sort of quantification and qualification of the land that's currently in RC. For instance, there's a certain amount of property that's on the northern side of 82, in the middle of that does not go far back from the road. It has an incline that gets into some of the topics we're going to talk about later, is developing on some things with a certain incline, that businesses aren't going to be able to successfully develop any type of business on that, because the property that they have, unless they have a long stretch along the road, is going to be difficult for them to do. So it's a case by case basis. You know, the same could be said with the property in front of town hall. Because of the incline, that immediately, yes, it's in the RC zone, but it's the landscape is prohibitive to what business can actually happen there, which is why I think you could
Ski
make
hill.
a case. What's that?
Ski hill.
Yeah, well, but that's at the
Sledding
dump.
Hill, Memorial Hill. It's a park, for Christ's sake.
No, I know,
So-
but what I'm saying is that you can't just, I appreciate that you sent the zoning map. It's really helpful, but you do need to kind of look at this also at an elevation level, as far as what is, acceptable for a business to try and put business on, but then also what it's abutted against, and in some cases that may be marsh or protected areas. So it's worthwhile to look at it not just as like, here's one thing and we're trying to extend it, but should we extend it? So then it's not so much of a debate, Gary. It's like we're trying to collect information to make an informed decision on whether we do or don't do it.
Mhm.
And that's a long-winded way of saying I don't have that information to make a confident decision at this point.
I think
So-
that's a really good point, Nathan. That, that there's so many different pieces but we're still looking at individual pieces instead of being able to combine, say, all the maps, looking at topography, wetlands, frontage, zoning, combining it all to see what realistically will work.
So the map on page 24, Nathan, gives what is currently in commercial use. I think you probably saw that. That's part of what you are talking about. But I mean, that could be overlaid with wetlands and steep slope maps if we wanted to go that way. Another way to go about it was just cruise through downtown and say, particularly with somebody who knows development, and say, could this possibly be a commercial site?
I'd
That would
cruise
probably
with
be-
Karen Mosier. Karen would be a great one to cruise with.
It's funny that you said that, Gary, because I did actually take some of these maps to overlay them so I could see some information, not around this topic, but for other stuff.
Well, the consultant can do that in the GIS if if you want specifically to overlay, because we've got all those layers.
Okay, cool. That's good to know.
Oh, Gary, I wanted to ask you something. I was in a seminar yesterday. I don't know where this would fit in. First of all, I would not want to lose any housing stock at all anywhere, because housing stock is really in a shortage here. And one of the things we're going to be talking about are the accessory dwellings. And how do we make more livable space and more homes for people? And the concept of tiny homes came up, which are 400 square feet homes and tiny houses, I guess. Where would they be in the plan, and why aren't they mentioned at all? Do you remember?
I think we just we sort of lump them under other accessory structures, right?
But they're
Rather than-
actually little home. Are they? They're not. I don't think they're mentioned.
But they're not
I don't think so
excluded.
specifically. I think they're just, considered another type of accessory structures. Many of the accessory structures are, in fact, small homes for farmhands and things like that.
There's actually a phenomenon called tiny homes now.
Yeah, I know.
Right,
And-
right,
right.
but they're not excluded by our zoning.
I thought they were excluded by currently that if they're, and I think they are excluded by our zoning.
I think it depends on if they're permanent or whether they're mobile. Do they have plumbing? Do they have electrical? Like, I think they fall under pre-existing zoning laws.
Okay.
I mean, I think so.
There's some kind of silly laws in the zoning about what size the accessory structure has to be relative to the house. And
See,
so
and
the
this-
zoning
and-
committee needs to take a harder look at that to see if it makes any sense.
Because these aren't actually accessory dwellings, they're permanent dwellings, but they're 400.
Right, but I'm saying if I bought a 5-acre lot, I could put a tiny house on it. There's nothing that says I can't do that.
Are you sure?
No, but I can't imagine we have zoning that says I have to build a 2,000 square foot house on my 5-acre lot.
No, but I just remember, and I guess we can look into it. I remember when Chris from Pine Plains wanted to build a tiny, I think I asked Don Smith if they were allowed, and he said no.
Wendy, are you talking about a tiny house as the only house on the lot, or as a supplemental house on the lot?
The only house on a lot.
Well, we should allow them for sure. There's no
Right.
reason not to.
Right, so I think maybe we just add language in, if they're currently not allowed, we should add, because they're inexpensive and people could afford to, if they can live in 400 square feet, they could afford to have a place to sleep and eat and cook. Okay. So moving on to chapter 4. Who wants to kick this one off? Anne,
No,
I don't like starting, no.
I'll start. We're on recreation.
we're on, well, chapter 4 is called Community Character and Economic Development. And it begins with recreation.
Yeah,
Somewhere around page 70 there.
okay.
Page
Thank you.
74, I think.
74.
My thoughts were pretty quick. On page 75, where it lists the capital improvements. I just want to make sure the pickleball court is in there because that is one of our crowning achievements.
Which paragraph are you in?
Second paragraph that starts with the Town of Stanford Recreation Commission.
Ah,
Okay.
But then I guess I wanted to address that second paragraph where it talks about the population of children declining, and it references the earlier demographics where we were talking about, we're an aging population. So I would like to add either a sentence there or in the comprehensive plan recommendation, something about that the rec commission's mission should also be activities for older residents, or frankly, honestly, even just the one bullet that we maintain and enhance current recreation activities and facilities to promote social vitality and health for all ages. Because it really focuses on things that we have for young people, but I think it should say something about, because we do have an aging population, hence the pickleball court.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's it.
Did you see the article in the New York Times this weekend about pickleball and how it's become the big thing?
Yes, it's the fastest growing sport in America. You have to go to James Baird Park on a weekend and see the hordes of people descending for these tournaments. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
One of our new tennis courts is going to have lines that so it could also be 2 pickleball courts or 4 pickleball courts, or I don't remember how many pickleball courts, but Everett's on pickleball. Big
We
time.
need to charge admission. That's what I think we should do.
All
But I
right.
don't, any other comments for that section?
For nothing for the historic resources, or,
Oh, we're moving on to historic resources.
well, I think it's all the
The whole
same.
chapter.
All of
It's the
chapter
whole
4, right?
chapter.
The whole
Margaret.
chapter. Okay. We have a lot of recommendations for historic resources. I say that as a history teacher with an interest in architecture. That's a lot. That's a lot.
We can get rid of a lot, Margaret, because we've already established the commission.
True.
So since that commission already exists, I don't see why it would be in the comprehensive plan.
So just get rid of that bullet.
Where is it?
It's on the left-hand column, the last bullet that says establish a historic advisory commission on
Yeah.
page 79.
Yeah. Well, because we already have it.
Mhm.
And then that goes on to the top, the first paragraph of the right-hand column also goes, because it's the same thing.
Well, so all those sub categories on the right-hand side there are under that one about what the Historic Advisory Commission would do. Do you want to take those out? Have you already
Yeah.
given it a mission?
We've given them their mission. Their mission statement is part of the resolution to establish them. So that can all go.
Okay, that sure gets rid of a lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're efficient. Okay. Okay, then moving on to economic development on page 83. The last paragraph where it says balancing parking supply and demand is essential for creating a vibrant business hub. For the Stanfordville hamlet, the town could create flexible off-street parking requirements by allowing shared parking or reduced minimum off-street parking requirements. I feel like we did talk about this before, but what would that, I don't really understand what that means.
Well, let's see now, what we meant by that. Flexible off-street parking requirements by allowing shared parking. So shared parking would be, a business that only requires parking during the day, sharing their parking with another business that requires parking at night. So
But
with the
how
way
would
it currently
we
stands,
facilitate that?
I guess it would be just some brokering some sort of an agreement between two businesses. I don't know exactly who in town would do that, whether it would be the town board, the planning board, who, maybe if the permit for parking, a site plan permit came up for the planning board, maybe the planning board would do that. We didn't really talk about it that far, but it might be worth thinking about how that would get done. Do we need to designate someone who might do that?
Well, towns themselves do become involved in creating public parking.
Mhm.
I know, but having a business, not forcing them, but encouraging them to share their parking is different than a municipal lot.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah,
there
so
would be-
we didn't
maybe
envision
there-
we didn't envision municipal lot here. I mean, the second thing is about reducing the requirements in the zoning for the amount of parking that's needed. That would make it a little bit easier to, have the required parking for a business to establish.
Okay, and then on the next page, on page 84, there's a couple of bullets that we've basically talked about establishing home-based businesses, but I guess that's in that second column under regulatory.
Mhm.
I guess that's just another area to flag when we finally make a decision, to reference what home-based businesses are going to be allowed.
This is page 85, Margaret?
84. At least it's 84 on what I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
And then, I'm sorry, I skipped on the first column on page 84, second to last bullet, it says, identify vacant or underutilized properties and create a town fund to incentivize adaptive revitalization of existing buildings. So that's basically kind of what Frank was talking about.
Mhm.
That the town actively using taxpayer money to yeah, I don't really, so what would that be? What would that look like?
Well, I think it's what we were envisioning is basically what's done there. The town would set aside a fund that would be for,
Giving grants or rehabbing itself?
Yeah, it would be probably some sort of a grant program for maybe a matching grant program for a business that wanted to restore one of the properties in the center of town to help them out. That's, we didn't talk about it in any detail. It was just, an idea that came up that sounded like a way to go forward to try to make sure that we were making maximum use of the space we had in the rural center. Do you think that's not realistic?
I'm more,
That's just not
no,
about-
I think the idea of a grant program is definitely more realistic than, the town undertaking the whole rehab project.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I just wanted clarification on what.
Yeah, the other thing we've talked about is a fund created by real estate tax that funds, purchase of development rights and things like this as well. So
That could be a slippery slope.
Hmm.
Using taxpayer funds.
Yeah, this is not an uncommon topic for towns and small cities where there are private-public partnerships. And Newburgh had one recently in the Poughkeepsie Journal noted. I don't know that we'll ever get a grocery store because of all the factors involved, but if there was a demand of the residents to have one, it doesn't prohibit the town for creating some kind of incentives that have some monetary base. So I don't need to speak in my turn because that is the only bullet I wanted to speak about. I think it's a magnificent suggestion that should remain, and then that should be studied. And financially, to create such a fund, we may never be in the positive position to do that right now, ever again in our history. So I think it's a brilliant suggestion.
I would actually kind of like to put in the language that you said, something like a matching grant program, because for me, that bullet is confusing as to what exactly we're proposing. But I kind of agree with Frank that I do think it's an important bullet because every time I drive to Poughkeepsie and I drive through Pleasant Valley and then I hit Eastdale, that's what I think of every time. All of the dying infrastructure in Pleasant Valley, all the empty facades, all the empty buildings, and how many millions of dollars right down the road to build something, brand new. So I like that bullet.
Is it possible that, and I think, Frank, you talked about this 2 years ago, but instead of that being a town function, which involves taxpayers' money, which makes me a little nervous, you had talked about something almost like what Everett is doing with the fundraising, the capital fundraising committee, except they haven't turned themselves into a foundation. But to have some kind of a nonprofit foundation uh, that was dedicated to doing that bullet as opposed to the town. To make it one step removed.
I don't think it's realistic to think that we're going to create a nonprofit to revitalize our commercial
We
district.
wouldn't. No. Well,
No, but I don't know that anybody would really. Do you think?
I don't know. I thought there was when Frank brought it up 2 years ago, I thought there was some kind of a precedent.
Well, my idea of a foundation was to explore opportunities for further developing the community in programs and whatever. It wasn't tied to this specific idea of developing properties and the commercial initiatives in town. I don't know how you would escape the involvement of the town. I mean, that's normally, or some independent political entity that would be created. But I think for now, it's all worth great exploration and study. And in my book, it would be the key to affording so many of the other things in the plan that might just cost money. So I like Margaret, I like the plan. Whether there are foundations involved, it's really worth exploring.
I mean, the other way of doing it is giving people tax breaks. I mean, that's what municipalities do. I mean, it's just either from one end of the budget or the other end of the budget.
Right.
Well, I don't have any problem leaving the bullet in there. It's not like it has to. I bet it's one of the longer action recommendations at the end of the plan. But I think it would take a very long time to get it implemented. But I don't have any objection.
What if the recommendation said what if you got rid of the town fund part of it and just said you identify vacant or underutilized properties, et cetera, and incentivize adaptive revitalization of existing buildings, and then you're not saying how you do that. That's
right. Encourage and incentivize. Yeah.
I like that. That's great.
Yeah.
I like the town fund concept, but that might not be the majority thinking.
I think it's a harder sell simply because we are talking about taxpayer money.
Well, yeah.
I feel like it opens up different options.
Right, I think it's
trying to
vague
figure it
enough that it doesn't have to be taxpayer. I would definitely be more, have an objection if we specifically put in their taxpayer money, because that, as I said, and maybe it's because of, my role as a school board member, I am very wary of, what we want to say we're using taxpayer funds for.
Well, that's why I like taking out create a town fund and just have and incentivize adaptive revitalization is vaguer.
When a town engages this, it's with an entrepreneurial perspective that if town funds are used for some infrastructure that will develop commercial activity, which then pays more taxes, it's a view of an investment, not just an expense. And so that's why my experience has been in communities where the town or similar organizations or institutions make an investment knowing or hoping that they have a very significant return on their investment. So I don't mind keeping that language in, but I think I'm outnumbered here.
Okay, so Margaret, was that it for you?
That's it for me.
Okay, so we go back to page 82 and Nathan.
Yes, is it 82 or 72?
82.
No, 72, back to the start of chapter
Yeah.
4.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to skip all that.
that's okay. Hopefully mine are quick because some of them are just comments, questions, and I don't think there's anything too profound. There might be one thing. On page 74, it says the department organizes swimming lessons and indoor soccer. I think it's actually outdoor soccer, or it's either indoor and outdoor soccer.
It's both over different years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
We could just say soccer.
sure.
Yeah,
Just gonna say that.
And then that paragraph continues on the next page, and it says the annual community day. I'm pretty sure that the Grange is the one that actually facilitates the community day and not the rec department.
Correct.
where are you?
So
75.
74 into
75.
75, yeah.
Okay,
I'm glad you said that, Nathan, because I thought it was me. I thought, man, all these years, I thought it was the Grange that did that.
Yeah, it's the Grange that does it, not the
Okay.
recreation department.
Okay, so what do you think we should do then? Nathan? Just take it out?
yeah,
Yeah, I would just take out the community day.
good catch.
Just so everyone's aware, I think it's already been talked about, but Margaret, you were talking about like the future fundraising efforts. We're already doing that and we've been getting it. So I just was celebrating that moment. The next item, 2 items, was on page 79. So the last bullet point on the left-hand side, it says establish a historic advisory commission. I just put in there that I think that's already happened, but it sounded like that was already discussed as well.
Yeah, we
yeah, we
got
took
rid
that
of
out.
that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. The bullet before that, it says participate and support. And my question just was, just for me to know, it doesn't necessarily mean that we change the language, but is support like financial? Is it people? Is it a variety of things? Is it just advocacy?
I think it's advocacy,
Okay.
because they write grants and get all of that,
Okay.
all of those markers. Kathy and the Historic Society take care of.
Okay.
I think it was intended as cheerleading.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just didn't know. I just wanted to know. Then the next thing I had was on page 82. The first sentence under the first paragraph. Again, this is just for me. It doesn't need to require any changes here, but the businesses that are part of the SBA, that does not include home businesses currently, does it?
Unless they join. Anybody can, any business can join the SBA. You don't
Okay.
have to have a brick and mortar.
Okay. Then my second question was, do we know what percentage of the businesses that are in town are actually part of the SBA?
No, but you could ask Jeff Como at Rooster, because he's the president now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have lists of both, so we could also figure it out, but Jeff might know
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I was just curious if we knew what it was. And then
I think, Wendy, just from the list of businesses that's on the website, I'd say it's something like half, isn't it? Half are members. It's not important.
In fact, I have to add, like, the no donut records, I still haven't added to the list of businesses. Right now, we're locked out of the website, as
Hmm.
Nathan knows, so I can't do anything. Actually, that's not true. I can access it with this computer. I can't, it's our network at work that has blocked it entirely. The watchdog protection we can't get on
Oh.
it. Yeah,
We'll come back to that then. Then it's a separate issue than I send the emails.
okay.
But I'm going to continue just to try to keep us on pace. So on page 83, I have a snarky comment about the first paragraph that says cyclists passing through the town enjoy the scenic views. I wish that were the case. If anyone has biked on 82, don't necessarily feel like you're safe. And if you're going to try to be in that 3-foot zone, you're just in pothole heaven. So if you've got a road bike, I hope you have a really good padded seat. But yeah, it's just
cyclists passing through town. Cyclists passing through town stop and enjoy the views.
There you go. Fair enough. They walk slowly. I mean,
Take
I
their
love
life in their
road bike,
hands.
but
As they climb out of the pothole.
yeah. Then the next one is the next paragraph. I have to see what this note is.
Is it just another snarky comment?
No, it's an applause for us. It says provide opportunities for businesses to sell good. Essentially, it's the farmers market, which we already know has been passed.
Wait, where are you, Nathan?
It's the last paragraph of the first column that goes into the second column that says Stanford can also modify regulations to allow temporary gatherings and events, providing opportunities for businesses to sell good, which the board's already taken steps towards encouraging that through the farmers market law that we passed.
So do you think we should take that out?
No, I was just saying it was a moment for us to applaud, that we're already taking action on some of these things, which is great.
Yeah.
That same, the next paragraph, the tourism through outreach. The last one, it says the town does not currently regulate or otherwise oversee short-term rentals. And I was just wondering if there were recommendations on, like, we don't need to, it doesn't need to get answered here, but I think that we would look for recommendations how to regulate that, because I know that nationally that's a touchy, sensitive topic for a lot of different reasons. And I don't know if there's any one municipality that has found something that's successful to do that. So
yeah, so we talked about this quite a bit, Nathan, and the original recommendation was that we charge a fee to these short-term rentals, so that to cover the costs of inspecting for building codes and things like that. There was quite a bit of objection to that. So the one recommendation that we put in was that we do need more information on this, and that we should just keep track of them. So you can see that last bullet in the regulatory section of the comprehensive plan recommendations there on page 84. Prepare an inventory of short stay residential properties and require a registration permit. So basically, we just want to find out how many are operating in town, and then we can have some information about whether, for instance, they are reducing the longer term rental market in town, and whether there is some rationale for regulating them.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that bullet point, because I also talked about that, saying that could be challenging for a town that may not be well informed in it. But if we could look to the county or the state, because they might have some of that data, or ways for us to make sense of that data quicker, for us to kind of come up with some ideas and recommendations.
Yeah, after we wrote that, we learned that the county does do this.
Yeah.
So they already have an indication. I'm not sure if we consider it totally accurate, but they already have an indication of the number of short-term rentals in Stanford, and they collect a tax from them, as part of the fee. I'm not sure if we get any of that tax. I don't think we do, Wendy, but that might be a point of negotiation with the county.
Yeah, I don't think we currently do.
We
Um,
provide,
I
we
think I
provide the
once got a
roads and the fire
long,
protection and all that, so.
I have a long memo from Heidi Seelbach about how the county gets the money. Which way I can dig up.
Yeah, some other municipalities are making noise and talking about how the local towns should get a cut of that. So there is some talk and there is some movement, but I don't think anything, I don't see it going through the county legislature anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, we will and can certainly discuss it at greater length, but I think it should be inclusive of just thinking about housing in general. Like, it shouldn't be a separate conversation. It's as we explore housing as a topic, it needs to be folded into that, because there are implications. Because it's like, yes, we want to encourage, younger families to come, and we want to, maybe lower income availability. But we still also want to, because there's talk about, the agritourism and tourism in general, those short-term rentals enable that. So how do we find the right balance of the distribution of those so that we're not, cutting certain, members of the community off?
Is there more you think we should say here in the plan about that?
No, it was just for my clarification and knowledge.
Mhm.
And then my last one on that one is another celebratory one. It's just under the regulatory, the third bullet, temporary outdoor gatherings. I said we're already underway because we've done the market, the farmers market. That was it for chapter 4.
Okay. Okay, Anne, are you ready to talk yet?
All right. And actually, this is why I love going third, or fourth. Oops, and I just lost my place, because most of my comments have already been taken.
We're not going to keep letting you get away with this.
And I love that. One question I had, now I need to find it, goes back towards the beginning, and it was about the, it was actually had to do with the funding for new, where is it? Here it is, fundraising efforts on page 75. Since Margaret already pointed out the pickleball courts, do we want to pull out the resurfacing 2 tennis courts, since by the time this is done, like, that's going to be done? Like, we're looking at a bid on that now. So do we want to,
Well, being devil's advocate, let's say that this document does exist for the next 20 to 40 years. You might want to keep that in there, because it will probably need to be resurfaced in that amount of time.
I don't play tennis, so I don't care. No.
So I think if
That's true. But I was thinking more about what we have immediately going through. Like, you're talking about the farmers market and, the celebratory things. Are there things to streamline this, to sort of pull out? But it totally makes sense.
Well, so you're saying that that sentence, these capital improvements include resurfacing 2 tennis courts, replacing the nets and posts, and installing new fencing surrounding the tennis court area. That's all been done already?
No,
No,
it hasn't been done
We
yet.
hope it'll be done by June, but it has,
Okay.
it's,
Right.
in fact, we've decided we're going to have to rebid it because the bids came in so high.
I'd say if it's not done yet, let's leave it in.
Yeah.
And then I had the same question about the historical commission. And actually, I even flagged the thing about the Pomeroy grants, because I used to, and I went too far, because I used to do that when I was working for DD. And I was curious what role we were going to play. Yeah, everything else that I have is taken, so we're good. I'm good.
So do you want to change support to like encourage, or something that doesn't sound so financial?
Where?
In that bullet, participate in and support the Stanford Historical Society's historical marker program. 2 people have flagged that. Is support too indicative of financial support?
I am fine leaving support in, because I'm also fine giving them money for a marker.
Me too.
So I'm
Good.
okay with it.
All right.
I would leave it.
All right.
Okay, Frank, you're up.
Okay, all of my suggestions and comments are on page 84 among the bullets. The last bullet on the left-hand column, I'd like to return to that. If we haven't talked it to death already, I would propose an addition to the language because I don't think we're going to have much play or much dedication to this initiative unless there's some funding where the town can dedicate a resource. So
Wait a minute, Frank. The last bullet on the left-hand side in mine is to promote Stanford as an agricultural community with farm markets, tours, and agricultural-based businesses. You talking about the one
Okay.
above that?
Second
no,
class.
yeah, it's the one before that.
Okay.
My pagination is older than the document you're looking at.
Okay.
What I would propose is the same language that's there up to the word town fund. And then I would suggest we add to research and promote an incentive and adaptive revitalization. So researching it and promoting it would give us, even if it's a small fund in the annual budget dedicated to that initiative, I don't think it's going to happen on its own. So that's one thought. The second is under regulatory. The first bullet, again, is about home-based businesses by special permit or right. I am opposed to having it by right. I would prefer to keep it as it is now by permit. And that way there's some regulation, even at the present time in those, theoretically, there's some regulation. The third item
Frank,
is
on that, just on that
Yeah.
note, I think my suspicion is the by right is there because of the right to farm component, which could be a business. So they have that ability to do that. So I wonder if that's why that language is or
No.
by right.
No, it's a zoning term, and it's
Okay.
like some businesses would have to be permitted, and some, such as tailoring, or there are businesses that are just allowed by right. So if Jeff wants to design books here and we make money that way, that's allowed by right. I mean, it's
Okay.
so
So like
I
me
think
doing website design out of my home, I
by
don't need a
right.
special permit
You
for
don't
that.
need a permit,
Right.
right? And so it's actually I think it's a critical differentiation. The kind of businesses that need to be permitted, and then those that you're just allowed to have. That's right, Gary? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that way. We agreed that some home-based businesses should just be allowed. They shouldn't have to go through the special permit process. And you also have to keep in mind, I was thinking about this afterward, is that some of these home-based businesses, if you force them to go through the special permit process, they're sort of going to go underground. You're going to have a difficult time finding them. So you don't want to make it too
Onerous.
onerous, right? Exactly. Yep.
what
Great.
language in that item would open the conversation for the zoning board to discriminate between the two?
I think they know what that means, Frank. There are already businesses that are by permit or by right. It's not.
So what we're talking about there is the extension of the use table that we talked about before, Frank, in this
Yeah.
meeting. You'd have home-based businesses, some by permit, some by right, and
Yeah, I have it here in front of me,
Mhm.
but I'm not quite sure what the point is because it's already there. We do have home-based businesses by special permit and or by right. So what are we accomplishing with that item?
Expanding, I think it may be, if we're expanding what businesses fall into each of those categories.
expanding the list.
Yeah,
Mhm.
expanding the list.
So establish may be the wrong word.
Yeah.
Is the word expand or define or promote, or because we already have established them?
Not all of them, right? So we want to,
So maybe it's further define home-based businesses by special permit or by right.
Yeah, I like that. Well, let's leave the language there for now, but I think that hits my interest. The third point is, let's see, the last bullet under regulatory. And it reads, prepare an inventory of short stay residential properties and require a registration permit. If in fact we have to accomplish that task, which might be a very good one, it might even allow us to promote these kinds of businesses. It will require more town staffing, in which case a registration permit could in fact help fund that. So I like that idea very much. And the last thought is not on the page, it's not a bullet. And I don't know how to address this, but with respect to protecting the value of our homes and properties and the culture of the town, there are some holes, it seems, in the town codes that allow specific items that are really terribly destructive to the appeal and value of some of our residents. If you have traveled on Hicks Road, you will see a house in which the neighbors are convinced there is an automotive business. I too am convinced because I travel there all the time, and there are many, many different cars and trucks in and out of there. But the homeowner has put up an 8-foot fence completely surrounding his driveway and garage area so that no one can see in. And the 8-foot fence is a steel roofing type material that's completely out of place in a residential neighborhood. It's probably out of place in a farm environment. And the posts for those 8-foot panels, steel panels, are at least 10 feet high.
They've been cut down, Frank. They finally got cut down.
Oh, great. Well,
But
nevertheless, there's something wrong. There's something missing in zoning that would allow that sort of thing to go up.
we need
And I
to
don't-
revise the fencing. There's no description in the fencing code of what fences can be made out of right now, and that absolutely needs to be revised.
Where would that fit into this endeavor, Wendy?
Gary,
Or
where would we
That's-
address the fencing?
that to me is clearly a zoning committee issue, to deal with what fences are made out of and things like that. That's not a master plan thing or a comprehensive plan thing.
Thank you.
That's a zoning thing.
I'm good. Great discussion. Lots of good stuff in that chapter.
Okay, I guess that leaves me, and I think a lot of my comments or the things I have sworn to bring up are actually Mark Burdick's. And a lot of what he was, we took care of a lot of his platform for complaining by eliminating all of the information about the historic commission. He was afraid that some of what they were going to recommend would end up triggering long form seeker reviews, which cost the petitioner a lot of money. But basically, it's gone. So Then I'm on page 82.
Wendy, could I just jump in with a couple of comments about Mark's letter? Just two things that
Did
right
he
off the top
send
of my
out
head.
the newest letter?
Yeah,
Did he
I
send
only
out
have
a
the
new
one.
le-
I only have the one that you sent a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, because he wrote another one, which he had included something about me in it, and he asked me if it was okay to send. And I corrected him on what I had said. And then I said, this is all still kind of goofy until you let us present our iteration of the comprehensive plan. But he's just hammering away on
Purchase and
property
development makes
rights
sense.
and the town purchasing.
Right. Well, there were just two things that I wanted that, those are his opinions and that's fine. But there are two things he said that were wrong that I think we ought to clarify. One is he said that there's an overwhelming town sense that we don't want public water and sewer. And there's never been any polling on that. So we don't really know what the town as a whole thinks. At those meetings that we had on the last comprehensive plan, there were a lot of people who spoke against that, maybe a dozen or something like that. Those people were brought out specifically to object to that. So it's not surprising that many of them spoke against it. But we don't really know where the town as a whole stands. I don't know if we want a poll on that, but we didn't include that, any central water and sewer, because it was clear that there wasn't a consensus in town and that, pushing that through would be a difficult thing. The second thing is that, he says there's no hope for a town center in Stanford. But one thing we do have polling on is a huge majority of people in Stanford want to see a walkable town center where most of the commercial activity in the town is. There was a poll, there was a survey that went out in the early 2000s on this, and it was like 96% of the town wanted to see that. And then we asked that question again when we started this comprehensive planning process in 2011. Same result. It was like over 90% of people want to see a walkable town center. So Mark is kind of out of step with the community on that, and I don't want us to think that he represents the entire community. I just
No,
wanted to put those things
he
out there.
represents 56 people, apparently. He's the hammer of 56 people, but he sure
Anyway.
can hammer. When you did the polling on the walkable town center, was it on both sides of 82, or was it only on the side? I do really on the north, south,
No,
west.
it was much more general than that. It was, would you support the concept of, encouraging a walkable town center in Stanford? And where do you think businesses should be encouraged to locate in Stanford? And the answers were, in Stanfordville and when appropriate in Bengal. So, and like I said, it was really solid majorities for both of those polls.
Good to know.
But it was fairly general. It wasn't specifically where in the town center the businesses should locate.
Okay.
Wendy, a couple
wait.
of questions on that topic that you just raised. Wendy, can I interrupt?
Sure.
With respect to Mark's letter, I spent all of my time reading and rereading the comprehensive plan, so I'd be ready for tonight and future meetings. I have not picked up Mark's letter or letters because I wanted to do my own review first. Will his document be a topic for consideration at some other time?
No, I think he's going to speak at the public hearing. I mean, you can certainly read. I hadn't planned on having a meeting about Mark's comments, but if everybody thinks that would be helpful, we certainly can. We're going to hear from him. Well, at the public hearing, we've already heard from him once, and we'll hear from him again. And then he put everything in that letter, and then he came in and talked to me for 4 hours. But if you want to discuss his letter, we can.
Well, I didn't necessarily. I just didn't want to miss an opportunity to discuss the items of all of the input from the community. And I didn't want to be behind the 8 ball because I have not studied it yet.
Well, you should give it a read then.
Okay, I will do that. The second item is for Gary. Gary, has anyone ever done a genuine cost benefit analysis of sewers and water? It sounds like everybody has an opinion, but there is nothing to support the economic feasibility of it. I mean, I'm not recommending it for this plan, but I'm curious that rumor and innuendo and unsubstantiated facts are driving the community in that area and maybe others. And Nathan's point earlier about the size and frontage and having a measurable assessment. Has anyone ever done that?
Well, the first point is about sewer and water. We've had a sort of preliminary engineering study to see whether it was feasible and where you would put a sewage treatment plant and where you might put a well. But that didn't really get into any economics of what would be the cost of that and what would be the benefits of that. So the answer is no. We've got as far as some of the engineering, but not the cost benefit analysis.
Thank you.
And then for Nathan's point about analysis of where new commercial sites would be, no, we haven't done that.
I'm gonna continue with my comments. Where we say where we're promoting all businesses, I'm on page 84. I just want to add horseback riding as one of the special attractions that we have, but I'm trying to figure out where that would go. Because I guess we don't.
I think it would be more up in the discussion of the kinds of things we do in Stanford. So it might be up on page 82 or 83. You'd want to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't have an 83. Wait a minute. I do have a page 83. Yes.
You could add it after Nathan's cycling sentence about the cyclists. You could say.
I think I mean, that we could add something about we're rich, we have ample opportunity for horseback riding.
Mm-hmm.
For the equestrian pursuits.
Equestrian pursuits sounds so snooty. Okay. That's where we'll put it. And then I just got Frank's to research and promote. Oh, I see. It says promoted. Oh, no. Okay. Never mind. You're right. That's where it should go, Margaret. So Gary, just to be clear, allow flexible off-street parking. What flexible off-street parking is just shared between businesses? Is that what that means?
There's two.
It says ease, this is a bullet point under regulatory, and it says ease requirements to allow flexible off-street parking. And I'm just confused about what that means.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit before. So there were two suggestions. One was reduce the number of parking slots that are needed for a business so that it's more likely that a business would be able to do that. And the other was shared parking between businesses that don't need the parking lot at the same time, or maybe one has one bigger than they need,
Got it. Thank you. I think I might be done. I'm done. So let's see, it's 8:35. What do we want to do? Are people prepared to sally forth into chapter 5? At some point, I guess we'll go through the whole document and then we'll recap. We're going to have to go back again and make decisions or have further discussion and make decisions. But are people ready to move into the next chapter?
I would prefer to hold off so that we could hit chapter 5 and know that we have the time to hit it all, in one shot instead of breaking it up.
Can we say though, for chapter 5, that everybody definitely the steep slope and the ridge right, this is the ridge protection
Yes.
section. Like
Yeah.
we all, I guess, we don't have to vote, but I guess we have to really that's the big issue that we really have to talk about.
Yeah, for me, the biggest issue is the ridgeline protection. I mean, I think that's a huge one, and it's one I'm actually against. So yeah, we're gonna have to figure those out. This is a tough chapter.
So
Okay.
if you read Mark's letter, he has a lot of objections there. So
This was me without Mark. You and I have talked about this, and I said actually at the very first meeting when you guys asked me, I said this is going to be the hot topic is ridgeline protection. So anyway, so do we have a consensus that we'd like to stop now and then just do
Yes.
all of? Okay, that was fast. All right, then. Thank you all for your comments. Gary, thank you so much. Your time is so valuable to us.
Yes, thank you, Gary.
are we
Thank
going
you,
to
Gary.
set another meeting time?
Yes, we
Can I get
should.
this on my schedule?
Yes, hold on. To find my phone.
I'm gonna stop recording.